the secrets to suppliers getting clients. FranX. Like that pump up music?
I do. It was different for FranX. It was good.
I mean, I got all these little buttons that I can push over here. I need to push the buttons more. Like, I need to bring this back.
And that was a good idea.
Except there were no good ideas.
I know, and we have one visitor. I mean, I like when people are watching. All right, so topic at hand. And when I told Charles the topic 3 seconds ago, he goes, "Oh God."
And there's a reason why, but
I know.
I'll let you explain the topic.
Okay, so the topic is the secrets to signing more franchisors. And so I want to tee this up that says, you go to these conferences, any big conference, and if you weigh suppliers to ZORs, there's always this heavy weight that goes more towards the supplier standpoint. So that shows me a few things. One, there's more people hunting than there are things to hunt. And so like you take a IFE in New York, I said to all of our franchisor clients, how did it go? And of course, most of them will say, I had 1 or 2 or 3 good conversations. They go, but boy, there were I felt like I was getting flooded with suppliers coming up to me and trying to sell me something. And so it got me thinking, is that the right approach? Or is there another approach that we can recommend? Because we don't take that approach. I don't think, Charles, you guys take that approach of like trying to hammer or these like, I mean, I bet you either of us could pull up our LinkedIn or our email right now, and there's something like, hey, sorry to bother you, or making sure this got to the right person. It's like, is that the right approach? So if I'm a supplier and I come, Charles, give me your secrets to me growing the franchise side of my business, what would you tell them?
And the reason I sighed is because the answer is you need to think long-term and think about value. I think 3 things. Think long-term, delivering value, and always understanding that no one owes you anything. Just because you shared something with a franchisor or may have helped out with something doesn't mean they should be working with you. Value, you really need to dig down with your team and identify that value point. And long-term, which is, it's a long-term game. So if you're going to IFE Expo, I have competition that consistently, and in a good way, I have no criticism. It makes sense. I admire it. Asking clients like, hey, when are you going to sign up with us? We don't take that approach. I don't know which one's right or wrong. I don't think either's right or wrong. But you need to be there for the long-term game. So if I were going to IFE Expo, I would be there to be supportive of the industry. The last thing I would ever do would be solicit a franchisor that is there to sell franchises.
All right. So if I was asked the same question, and I think you and me take a very, very similar approach, but if a supplier comes to me and says, I want to get lift, I want to gain lift with a franchise community, what would I say? Well, first it starts with 1. And you'll see there's a lot of similarities in my advice to franchisor too. You get 1 franchisor, let's say you're supplying franchisors, and you get 1, and you do everything in your power to make it work. Whatever service you're providing, make it work for that first one. Along the way, and Charles, you do this, I do this, I would start having conversations. It could be a video chat like this and talk about the impact that you're making. So now what you've done is you've delighted the client, and now you're recording their experience so that forever, long beyond any of us living, there's this qualifier that says, yes, what you said you would do, you've done, and now there's proof. And so now you have a video. Then I would say you take that video and you send it out to lookalike franchisors. If you can work with competitors in the space, send that out to every competitor of that franchisor and let them know that you have a validator of someone that you're producing well, and I would love to have a conversation with you. Now that's still a passive approach, because if you're using email and LinkedIn, you're trying to use a tool to start broadcasting the fact that you've done something great. You're using buzz to build that up. You're going to exhibit at a IFE or a multi-unit show. Now your booth, your video now translates onto your booth, and your booth is aligning with that message. So now that you're going to celebrate that franchisor. Most suppliers celebrate through logos. Logos, in my opinion, are fine, but they don't sell you. And so when you have the person there, and so then you might say, hey, client one, I would love for you to come to the multi-unit conference and let me pay for you. And I would love if you could spend a little bit of time in my booth to talk with other people, but I would gladly pay for you to come to the conference so that you can validate us and join us at our dinners and such. And so now all of a sudden you start building things up. So that's from a marketing standpoint. From a process standpoint, I've always believed in giving things away for free. Don't charge, and ultimately good will come out of that down the line. It might not come out of it immediately, but down the line, like I shared on LinkedIn last week, a workbook that we worked together, and Charles, it's someone who's amazing. I'm not going to say her name because everyone will go recruit her. Someone who's amazing on Charles's team pieced it together, but there was a great workbook that gives good guidelines back to franchisors that are trying to figure this out. And so we posted that. Charles has posted it. It's there. Use it. If you get lost, call Charles or I. And there's a tool that we put out there. We don't make a dime off of that. But the idea is, yes, I mean, truth be told, we're hopeful that someone goes through that exercise, gets to the other side of it and says, wow, that was impactful. And yes, I need some additional help. And therefore they turn into a client because we gave it away for free. I hear these agencies or marketing firms get up and speak at conferences. It's all about some BS magic on how what they do magically grows your franchise. And you go backwards and you say, all right, show me these franchises that magically grew, and also show me the ones that didn't. And more likely than not, because majority brands are chasing their 100 units, more likely than not, many have failed. And so, unfortunately, I think majority of selling and franchising is through pipe dreams, whether that's at a broker conference. Charles, you were just at one, where these Zors think that they're going to be able to magically grow here without putting in all of the work to get things going. And so my very long-winded advice is delight your clients, celebrate your clients in a way that is vocal, build buzz and brand awareness off of what you've done, and keep pushing down the pedal. And then lastly, it's reinvest in clients and non-clients. Like give things away and reinvest in your clients to show that you're grateful for what they're able to do to your life and your business.
And just putting bookends on all that, which we all know, but to your point, it's always about execution. No marketing strategy, no marketing promotion, no marketing initiative, nothing you do on the marketing end will ever beat consistent delivery, performance, meeting and exceeding expectations, and adding that value to the client. Because that moment where they say working with you is just so easy and so valuable, that's where you win, right? And so no marketing in the world can make up for that. So that's on the other end. And on the initial end of the spectrum, before you even dive into value and celebrating successes and other clients, it really starts with an assessment by your team as a supplier of what do we do, why, in being 100% genuine, honest, and candid, can we say to a client that they're better served working with us than our competitor? And you really need to dive into that. We all do. And I think if you really force that process, it may along the way say, well, we have some weaknesses and we need to improve our services or our delivery. So you can't disconnect marketing from performance and really understanding your value. So I would start there. I think it's not franchise or supply. It's every business in general. Most entrepreneurs and business owners, they jump ahead. They don't do that deep dive and they miss out on opportunity.
You know what I think another important tool to winning more franchisors or signing more franchisors is? The power of this, of listening. I think majority, like, and this is majority of salespeople. They have to operate within a script. And the reality is, yes, everybody has a similarity that everybody that you're pitching happens to be a franchisor in this hypothetical scenario. But each of their problems ends up being slightly different. And there might be some similarities in the problem, but when you don't listen and you stick to a script, then ultimately you don't come to a conclusion where you're offering a solution to their problem. And so understanding that, in my opinion, ends up being super critical to winning more business. And I also think being conscious that sometimes you're not going to be everything to everybody, and being aware of that is important. That if you listen to what the problems are and you know you can't solve them the way that the brand wants you to, then say no and be comfortable passing that person on to someone who potentially can.
No question about it. I mean, whenever I hear sales pitches, I'm always amazed how the person selling is talking about themselves more than just listening and understanding what their target is looking for. So, I mean, Nick, I think the supplier issue is just good business practices, and it's the same exact issue franchisors face with onboarding franchisees
Yeah.
and franchisee candidates.
Yeah. I mean, I also think suppliers they almost stereotype themselves as a supplier and not an entrepreneur, a founder, or a business professional.
Right.
And sometimes when you remove the term supplier and say, look, we're all humans trying to grow something, and you put yourself back on an even playing field with the franchisor, sometimes you can help them brainstorm a solution that can be beneficial to them. And that's the thing. I think we keep on putting everybody into these segments. And what that does is it fragments the industry and it limits those that can actually provide the right solutions. And, there's also the form of jealousy of competitors. I think a lot of suppliers harbor jealousy more than use a competitor's mojo for fuel for them to make their services better.
Like, I'm curious, it's interesting. When I was speaking recently, I explained to franchisors, emerging franchisors, I said, just because you have a good conversation with a broker at a networking event and you have a great conversation, you have dinner together, they don't owe you anything. And because they like you doesn't mean they're going to refer a candidate to you, nor should they, right? It's all about the fundamentals. What do you think suppliers, how should they approach? Naturally, you need to network and build relationships. What do you think the weight of that personal relationship or having dinner with someone or networking versus creating a product or service that just has overwhelming value? I know you want to do both, right? I tend on the service delivery end, and I feel like I'm weak on the networking end. And then I feel like there's others maybe strong on the networking, but not on the service. But what would you recommend for suppliers and how they balance that? Are too many just on the networking front and not on the delivery front?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that there's a lot of snake oil being sold in franchising. And franchisors want to grow so desperately. Grow, they don't even have a definition of what grow means. They just want it. Let me grow. And so snake oil sounds really, really attractive. And so that, the franchisor goes and buys the snake oil because that person can, party at a bar. And you start looking at the substance underneath them or under their offering, and it's weak at best. So my opinion is you continuously reinvent every single month as a supplier. You reinvent and recalibrate your offering and your operations behind that offering. Continue to fine tune that. Let your solutions do the talking. And then therefore, when you network, it's not about who can drink the most or who looks flashiest or who looks like they're in the in crowd. That stuff doesn't matter. And eventually, and we've had this happen many times. We are not in the in crowd by any means in franchising. But many times, you go and try the snake oil. You're enamored by the heavy drinking at the bar. You like that culture. It feels good. It's a fraternity. You look at the impact to your business and it fails, and then you call us. And I would say 9 out of 10 times when we get those brands, I go, okay, what's the trigger for you even reaching out? They go through it, and then they say, look, I've been burned. I need a discount. I'm like, well, unfortunately, with our business, you're actually going to pay a premium. And I said this at the beginning stage. I said, go, we might not be ready for you or you ready for us at that point in time. But when you are, understand we're not a discounter, because we're very, very and the reason why, and Charles, you and I have had this conversation too. I am adamant about the terms of our agreements because I know the value that we've provided surpasses what is paid. And so that mindset is super important, because then it just means what you do works to its best of its ability,
Yeah. And again, I think the overview you gave is important, which is what you deliver, proof of concept, and demonstration from other clients saying they did what they said they would do, and here's the benefit. Right, all basic.
See, the secrets have been told. And I bet you franchise suppliers are going to watch this, and they're going to say, boy, those two are the smartest two people in franchising.
Said no one. Yeah, no, it'll be good.
That's it. Suppliers, go get your shit done. See ya.